It's rough out there, you know, in the world. Some of us turn to writing for solace and inspiration. Text that helps us take in the dark and find the light. So if you are someone who wraps themselves in words to warm your heart, or maybe just looking for a little help getting through the day, week, year, join us as we talk to people about the pieces of writing they use to bolster their souls and remember their way. The good bones that remind us we can make this place beautiful. Hello, and welcome to Finding Good Bones, a literary podcast all about the writing we love that helps us sit with the dark but still look to the light. I am a host, Kate Caldwell.
Did you forget your last name?
Well, I just always debate if I should say my last name or not. Like, you know, I love a moniker.
We're off to a good start. Okay. I'm the other host, Amy Winters.
We have last names today.
We do.
Amy Winters, what are you reading?
I am still rereading my way through the October Day series by Shauna McGuire. I'm on now book 10. Woo! A Once Broken Faith. Mm-hmm. And it's super good. And I'm having a great time because I'm really busy right now and all I can do is relax. I just need that reread. What about you? What are you reading?
So I am still reading Night Bitch, but I have also been flipping through. I know, it's such a good title. It's really interesting for another day. But I have picked up and started flipping through a book of poetry by Nikita Gill called These Are the Words. Nikita Gill is actually a poet that you introduced me to, Amy. I'll have to remember the specific poem. But this is a book that one of my dear friends, Rachel, got me for my birthday. And I picked it up the other day and was like, oh, you're going to be on this podcast, little book of poems. So that is what I am flipping through.
Okay. All right. Is it time for our guest?
I mean, yeah.
Okay, sometimes it takes us longer.
I know, but
get right to it.
We just did it fast. Well, I think it's
We're
because
getting good.
I know. It's because you're in that series. So
yeah, I don't have anything to say.
Your descriptions of the books as you go on, they get shorter and shorter.
They're real good. Okay.
Guest time.
So, guest time. Let me introduce our guest for this episode. Her name is Sumina Bhatti. Her bio was given to us in a bullet list, so I'm going to read it. Burgeoning gardener, curator of delights, gatherer of memes, tea geek, lover of glitter, intentional community gatherer, steward of Bodhi the dog, and inquisitive human. Yeah, Bodhi's an awesome little guy.
Yeah, Bodhi's definitely going to go into the show notes.
Hi,
Sumina.
Hi, y'all. We're happy to have you here today.
I'm so excited to be here today with y'all.
Awesome.
We're so excited to have you here. What have you brought us?
I have brought you one of my favorite passages from a book called The Book of Delights. The author is Ross Gay. And this is from page 49 and 50 in the book. Here we go. Among the most beautiful things I've ever heard anyone say came from my student Bethany about her pedagogical aspirations or ethos, how she wanted to be as a teacher, and what she wanted her classrooms to be. What if we joined our wildernesses together? Sit with that for a minute. That the body, the life, might carry a wilderness, an unexplored territory, and that yours and mine might somewhere, somehow meet, might even join. And what if the wilderness, perhaps the densest wild in there, thickets, bogs, swamps, uncrossable ravines and rivers, have I made the metaphor clear, is our sorrow, or to use Smith's terms, the intolerable. It astonishes me sometimes, no, often, how every person I get to know, everyone, regardless of everything, by which I mean everything, lives with some profound personal sorrow. Brother addicted, mother murdered, dad died in surgery, rejected by their family, cancer came back, evicted, fetus not okay. Everyone, regardless, always of everything. Not to mention the existential sorrow we might all be afflicted with, which is that we, and what we love, will soon be annihilated. Which sounds more dramatic than it might. Let me just say dead. Is this sorrow, of which our impending being no more might be the foundation, the great wilderness? Is sorrow the true wild? And if it is, and we join them, your wild to mine, what's that? For joining two is a kind of annihilation. What if we joined our sorrows, I'm saying? I'm saying, what if that is joy?
What if?
Yeah.
I'm inclined to say yes.
Uh-huh.
What a really profound and kind of everything passage. How did you come across this? Either the book or this particular passage or all of it?
Both at the same time. There's another podcast that's relatively popular called On Being with Krista Tippett. And
Yes.
Ross Gay was a guest on her podcast, and the podcast came out March 26th of 2020. So they recorded it.
Yeah.
It was one of the few last live performances that they had recorded. So you hear the audience laughing and you hear this happening in that podcast. And he read the same passage from this book. And at that particular time where March of 2020 was just such an incredibly difficult, challenging time. This book called A Book of Delights, which looked at things in a different way, just captured me. And if you've been my friend for any amount of time, I have read this passage to you.
So can you tell us a little bit about the book as a whole?
Yeah. It is a book of little essayettes, little tiny snippets and essays. The author, I believe, started writing it on his 38th or 39th birthday, and his goal was to write one short little essay or story about something that delighted him that day. And then he compiled them into this book. And I think it was around the same age, around the same time that he had released that book. And and the delights are not exactly what you would think. Some are things that you would think are delightful, but some of the little passages in there talk about the delight of seeing two people carry a burden that one person could carry by themselves, like a bag of laundry. Like one person could do it by themselves, but there's a delight in something of having to even your cadence out and walk together to do this thing. Anyway, It was a beautiful book at that time, and it's one of my favorite books to gift and give away to.
Oh, I love it when I find a book and I'm like, you will be going to my friends, to the people that are significant to me.
Yeah.
So this is one for you. How many
This is one for
people, can you approximate how many people you think you've given it to date?
I would guess I've bought probably 40 copies of the book, if I had to guess.
Oh,
I love it so much.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so, what is it in particular about this passage that kind of made it stand out to you and want to be the piece that you read out loud today?
Yeah. It's the paradox between the most beautiful things that he starts with and the description of the wilderness, right? The insides of us, the thickets, the bogs, swamps, etc. And then everybody living with something. And the some things he mentions are not light things, brother addicted, mother murdered, fetus not okay, cancer came back. I feel like if you know other humans, you're hearing these stories around often. Yeah.
It made me actually wonder if when he was making that list, he was thinking of specific people in his life of what they were going through.
Yeah.
Not that these are like super specific, but just the way that he puts it, I'm like, boy, I feel like there's a name attached to this somewhere, because there is, whether or not he knows it.
Yeah.
I started immediately listing in my head all the people I know and all the things that they have and the things that I started immediately thinking through everyone else's sorrow.
Yeah. And I think that the piece pivots for me at the end where it's like, is sorrow the true wild? I feel like sometimes we're making these distinctions between sad, happy, right? We like the binaries of something sad is happening.
Yeah.
We can't be happy. If someone's struggling with cancer, we can't be happy. And it's like, but it's the mirroring of the sorrow is where the joy is, especially at the time where the pandemic was going on and everything felt just crazy.
Yeah. Oh, look, I love how all you had to say was March 2020. And both Amy and I were like, oh.
Yep.
I only know a few other current cultural things that can have that, and granted, it's a very American view. But like, if somebody is like, ooh, September 12th, 2001, we might all be like, ooh,
yeah,
okay. But there aren't that many experiences that all of us can just mention a month and a year and everybody just locks. I think that's exactly that joining of sorrows, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a joy in that just right now, like that I experienced, where we could all recognize exactly what you meant.
Yeah.
By March of 2020.
It's for joining too is a kind of annihilation, right? There's a connection, a merging of something that happens there to be like, this is a globally recognized experience we all had, which is very rare. And those last two lines, what if we joined our sorrows? I'm saying, what if that is joy? And it's just like, man, if I could reframe some of my thinking sometimes.
Everything.
Yeah.
Well, actually, when I read Is Sorrow the True Wild, my first thought was like, no, that's joy. Because I think of joy as so chaotic and so wild and visceral, right? And I don't necessarily think of sorrow, like certainly like talking about the wilds and the wilderness and the bogs and those heavy things. That brings sorrow to mind. But sorrow's not, it's not chaotic the way, or I don't think of sorrow as being chaotic the way that joy is. I actually think of sorrow being really heavy and the energy and the frenzy of joy. Not that it can't also be still, but I loved that that's what he closed with, because when I read it, being the oppositional person I am, I was like, is sorrow the true wild? No, it's joy. And then he's like, what if it's joy? And I'm like, oh, just kidding, you got it. You know, sir, and that's why you wrote a book.
Yeah.
You were saying, have there been any experiences that you have tried to reframe using this, or have you noticed yourself with this in mind being able to reframe a little bit more intuitively?
The piece resonates with me a lot, right? There's not just the pandemic, but certainly the time afterward. Like, at the beginning in March of 2020, we thought kind of maybe there's still a 6-week vacation for a little while.
Yeah.
And as that started to shift and we thought, oh, I don't think we're going to be out of this till the summer. And then to Christmas, like, it was, I'm going to have to learn to rest in this space, this liminal space that is becoming less liminal and more permanent as those weeks are going by. Can I do that with joy, or am I going to be a grouchy grouch the whole time? And really understanding like, and what?
How did it go?
I mean, it was both and.
Were you a grouchy grouch the whole time? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
not the whole time, but it's understanding that you're going through something difficult. Can you still find the joy in it, right? If I'm trying to run a marathon or climb a mountain, there's going to be blisters and there's going to be sore muscles. And is this going to be part of this process? And can I actually learn to enjoy that, knowing this is a part of it? Or am I going to be fighting it the whole way?
Yeah.
I've personally found with running that, yes, I will be fighting it the whole way. I have yet to find the joy.
I don't know. And I don't know if it's
I
necessarily finding the joy in running. It's finding the peace to be like, this is a painful part. This is a part where things hurt.
Mm-hmm.
There's a,
Mm-hmm.
like a surrender or something in that for me. That's like, I can fight this and it could still feel miserable, right? It's not that it may never be pleasurable. Running may never be pleasurable for me, but can I actually be okay with the discomfort? Can I be like, oh yeah, my feet are hurting and I have blisters. This is the sucky part of this. I still hate it, but can I relax a little bit more into that surrender piece?
Into the, yeah. Can I relax a little bit more into the loathing?
Yeah.
Haven't found it?
Yes.
for that. I found it for other things though. I think we've all done our fair share of physical hardships and endurance. And I do think that it's really fair for us to be able to find it in some things and not to be able to find it in others. But recognizing that there is the capacity to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a little bit where the choice comes in.
Right. If we can have choice in it, maybe it's less terrible. And if I feel like I don't have a choice and I have to fight it and it's bad already. So
well, here's the thing. Yeah, I think you bring up something really good because maybe the situation is not a choice, right? The pandemic was certainly not a choice. Grief is generally not a choice, right? And I've heard this before, like you can't choose what happens to you, but you can choose how you respond to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can choose, what you think about it and what you take from it. And so I guess that's what this reminds me of a little bit as well. Like we don't, like none of that is, brother addicted, mother murdered, dad died in surgery, rejected by their family. Like none of that's a choice that the person that is dealing with this sorrow has made.
Chosen. Yeah.
But yeah. But there is a choice on what they can find in it. And then there's also, and I guess I'm coming back to also the essay that you talked about that I have not read, but the idea of sharing this burden, the delight in sharing a burden.
Mm-hmm.
We can make the choice together to join our sorrows. And is that joy? Is it?
I mean, that the task may not be the joy. Yeah, the task may not be the joy, right? Carrying a heavy bag of laundry up a hill is not in itself possibly joyful, but doing it with somebody and having to figure out your walking cadence together, like there's something about that might be the joy. It's still gonna suck.
Yeah. Or laughing about it later. Like the ability to laugh later about a really terrible situation. I have done that with some of my closest friends, right? We have gone through something terrible together, and we're not able to laugh about it in that moment because it was terrible. But a couple years down the road, like suddenly this trauma, we can laugh about it, like March 2020.
Too soon.
But, you know what I mean? Yeah.
How naive we were.
But just that though, right? Like we can find the joy now in our past suffering. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we had it then. But because it was shared, we can look back and find some joy in it now.
I think even then some of us were lucky enough to have it, to join our sorrows at that time. A group that Sumina and I were deeply involved in, our self-defense gym. We got together, we met online a lot, and talked about it, kind of had fun. Sumina put together like a little, let's go to the park and sit 20 feet away from each other.
I was there. We were all there.
Yeah. So we did join our sorrows, even like right in that moment. We don't even have to think now, now our sorrows are joined. We joined them right then. We didn't know that's what we were doing, but we did.
I just love that phrase too, joining our sorrows.
Yeah.
It sounds a lot fancier than sharing our shit.
But it's sort of like the function is served by, grief circles or support groups are essentially doing the same thing, which is it's a place to join those sorrows together to say, you're not alone. I mean, a lot of us as humans just want to
Yeah.
know, like, I'm not alone in my suffering, right? It may not be the same suffering as yours. It's not the same flavor of it, but at least I'm not completely alone in this feeling.
Yeah, I think joining of sorrows is definitely like one of those definitions of community, right?
Yeah.
Like there are a whole bunch of definitions of community, but a joining of sorrows is certainly one. So how familiar was this your first introduction to the author when you heard this, or were you familiar with him before you heard him speak on the podcast?
Hearing him on the podcast in 2020 was my first introduction to him. I was not familiar with his work at all. And then miraculously, was it last year? I think it was November of 2022, kind of at the last minute, I found out he was coming to the Texas Book Fest. And I was like, oh, Ross King's coming to Texas Book Fest. I totally nerded out and took my book. And so I have this one signed by him. Yeah.
Yay! Oh,
nice.
Sumina, that's so wonderful.
And he was really delighted to see how dog-eared my book was and tabbed off and everything. And he was just like, this makes me so happy. I was like,
oh.
Yeah.
I will say I have a very busted copy of Assassination Vacation by Sarah Vowell, which is a very wonderful book if you are a patriotic person that has strong issues with our government. And I had it in New York, right? And it rode the subway with me, and it had water bottles spilled on it, and like it's trashed. And I took it to a book signing, and I had her sign it, and she was like, "This is I love to see a well-worn book, like, because it means that I imagine what Ross was getting, like,
You've lived with this book a little bit, I mean, you haven't just read it; you've like lived with it. Has lived with you, right? Like you've experienced life with this book. As an author, I think I would just be delighted to have if someone came up to me like, I had this, but so worn. I'm like, this is so lovely. Yeah.
On the side note, this treatment of books is also why there are certain copies that my husband will not let me touch.
I have the same thing. There are books that Ryan is like, no, because I fold down corners and I lie them, I lie them open upside down, and books are to be used. I wouldn't do that to someone else's book, but my books are to be used. I'm sorry, Kate.
No, I wish mine was that intentional. I do lay them down. Like I don't fold the ears or I don't fold the corners down, but I just live with my book, right? Like I read it, I put it on my nightstand, I put it on the couch, I put it in my purse, and I take it with me places. Sometimes I sleep on it. Literally.
Exactly. Yeah.
Literally.
I do.
Yeah.
People give me bookmarks, and they're pretty. And I don't need them because I'll turn down the corner. That's all,
Oh, here's the thing. I use them. And then I also lose them.
Yeah.
Because they're in my book and I move them around and they fall out. Yeah. Yeah. So I love them. I take them. I use them. I'll forget about them. And then I'll find them 6 years later. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna lose some listeners just by them hearing that we mistreat books this way.
But it's not
it's not mistreating.
It's not
that we live with books this way.
Yes.
I mean, if you love something, it's that whole idea of like not saving things for a special occasion, right? Just use it or whatever. Because like if this book is special to me and I'm taking it on in all my aspects of my life to get my oil changed and to whatever, it's gonna get worn, and there's joy in that.
Yeah, whether it's awesome. Like I'm reading it and I can't put it down, or I've read it, I know what's in it, and I want to have it with me at all times, just in case I need to turn to it. Sumina, how do you take? I mean, you mentioned that you dog-eared. Are you hard on books too, or?
So, I mean, like this one has passages I like. I don't know if you can see this on the thing, but like the corners here are sort of like tabbed off a little bit.
We'll have you some pictures. Yeah, we'll have you some pictures for the show notes.
And then this book, not in particular, but if I'm reading a book where the top tab will be the one where I'm at, like my place marker, but I'll notch it on the bottom, which is like places I want to return back to. That's my.
I love it. I love it.
So different destruction depending on what you.
Yeah, you've got like a code for yourself.
Destructive code.
Yeah. Because sometimes like, where's that one passage I read that one time, but I need in this moment? I can find it.
I'm assuming that this is one of those for you.
How long is this book?
How what?
How long is it?
Let me tell you, 274 pages.
Okay.
But some of them, the passages are like the little essayettes are this long.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So some are short, and some are, 5 pages. And most, I think they're 5 pages. Maybe the longest, 5 to 7 pages. But, yeah.
Have you read anything else that he's written? Or has he written anything else? Or
he's written a second book called Inciting Joy, which I have as well, which came out after this one, which I like too. But this one has these really pithy passages, which are just get me in a particular way. And in thinking about the piece I wanted to share for this podcast, there's a couple different contenders, but I was like, I kept returning back to this. Okay.
Yeah.
It
also sounds like it got you through a time. I mean, it's gotten you through more than one time, but like it found you at a particular point when it's exactly what you needed.
Yeah.
And I do find like what you said right there, right? Like I keep coming back to it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is exactly what we want to be talking about, or what we love talking about here. So thank you for bringing what kept coming back to
Part of the joy is sharing it. So I get to relive it again every time I get to share it with somebody else who's not familiar with his work and doesn't know about it. Then I'm like, ooh, I get to relive it.
I'm going to get you a copy. Yes. Do you have any other books that you do that with, or is this kind of the first Sumina brand gift? Sumina brand book gift.
I mean, there's another book I return to and read almost every year called When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi.
Oh God, that is a book.
It's a hard one. Yeah,
it's a hard one.
It's a hard one. There was a lot in there too. I don't know that I could pick a passage. He's just a beautiful writer as well. So, but that's another book that I return to with, maybe I don't read it maybe every year now, but I return to fairly regularly. That's just like terrible things can happen. He had a choice in how he dealt with his terrible situation. And it's a beautiful story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard, but it is also quite beautiful and profound. Funny how those things go hand in hand. And that I think is also perfectly captured by this passage that you brought us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a podcast.
That's
Sumina,
a podcast.
Thank you so much.
We did it.
We did it.
Thank y'all. This has been a delight.
It has been a delight.
It has been a delight. I just remembered that that's part of the title. And it is both true and also like a little cheeky. I love it.
I'm a little cheeky.
I know you are. It's
For
one of the reasons why I was really excited to have you on. So we are going to close today's show with a request for, or I guess our recommendation for somebody who wrote in requesting a selection for them. They are named Kimberly, and they were looking for something bittersweet. They liked things such as the song She Used to Be Mine from The Waitress. And then also Jessie Klein's piece about motherhood as a hero's journey, which I'm going to read that. And then frankly, she says, I can do it with a broken heart from, I guess, Taylor Swift. Hit some of those notes hard. So what I will recommend, Kimberly, is a song that I was introduced to, that I will actually recommend to everybody, from Alison Russell's album, The Returner. And it's called Springtime. And it is filled with such joy, but then also like recognizes it's the joy of triumph through a very hard time. Like one of the lyrics is, oh gosh, what is it? In my return, my recompense is the springtime of my present tense. So long farewell, adieu, adieu to that tunnel I went through. I think I reversed them, but like it's very much acknowledging like I've been in a tunnel, but now I'm out and this is what I get because I made it through. So it's more on the sweet than the bitter, or it's honestly, it's like euphoric. Y'all take a listen because I think it perfectly kind of captures that wild joy. Okay. And that's the other thing, right? I think wild joy is inherently tied to the wildness of sorrow, right? So yeah, thank you. I'll be thinking about that a lot, Sumina. Yay. Okay, so once again, Springtime by Allison Russell on her album, The Returner. And that's it.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was so much fun. Okay. Yep, it's got to be over now. Thank you. Thank you, Sumina. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, dear listeners, for hopefully joining your sorrows with ours, as well as your joy. And yeah, thank you for joining us as we go finding good bones.